So the establishment is trying to sharpen their anti-Bernie Sanders message, and they are not doing so great. So here's Daily Kos founder Markos Moulitsas. He was on Meet the Press. Let's see what he has to say.
What do you make of the Bernie Sanders observation by Doug Thornell? Has Warren basically eclipsed Sanders in your world of sort of progressive, fundamental economic change politics?
Yeah, absolutely. The problem with Bernie Sanders is that he has the exact same message he had 4 years ago. And that message didn't get him to victory 4 years ago. Not sure why he's not trying to calibrate that, particularly in this field. And one of the arguments his supporters make and the campaign is making too is that everybody is, quote, stealing his message, as though maybe Bernie invented liberalism. But point aside, Bernie deserves a lot of credit for mainstreaming a lot of those ideas. But he has done nothing to build his own base of support. And why stick with Bernie, who's as divisive as he is, when there are more appealing, inclusive candidates in the field, and there's a bunch to choose from?
I'm honestly stunned how everything he said there was false. Like, it's not even like he gave us a little bit of break from the wrongness. It was just wrong, 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 wrong. So let's go through this here. First of all, the question from Chuck Todd, Human Oatmeal, he said, has Warren eclipsed Bernie as, like, you know, the fundamental economic change lefty messenger? And he's asking this, it's like a push poll. You know what a push poll is? They poll you on a question, not because they're actually interested in the answer, but they want to plant an idea in your head. And that's what Chuck Todd did with that question. Like, oh, is Warren the new person that represents the fundamental change candidate who's, you know, the real messenger of this? They want to plant that idea in your head. And, of course, Markos runs with it because he hates Bernie. By the way, Markos Moulitsas, most recently in the news for sending, like, a zillion roses to Nancy Pelosi's office. Shows you where his politics are, okay? Shows you where they are. So they want to plant that in your head. Now, the reality is, anybody who's paid attention to this stuff from the beginning knows that's ridiculous. There's no question. It's not an issue. It's not a question as to whether or not Elizabeth Warren is equal to or left of Bernie Sanders in her politics. No, she's right of Bernie Sanders. Full stop. That is an empirical question. That's quantitative. You can actually look it up and know. So Bernie Sanders is to the left of Elizabeth Warren, certainly at the very least on foreign policy, but also likely on Medicare for all too. Now, Warren supporters would say, but Elizabeth Warren clarified in the most recent debate that she's for Medicare for all. But that doesn't erase the waffling that she did before that. And she very clearly said her talking points before that night were, oh, all the Democrats want to get to the same place, whether it's Medicare for all extra or Medicare X or a public option or Medicare for all. We all want to get to that same place of universal coverage and, you know, affordable access. So she always used the weasel words on healthcare. And she always said, like, all the Democratic plans are roughly the same and get us to the same place, when that is not true. Because all the plans except Bernie and Jayapal's plan keep the for-profit health insurance companies running the show. So that's not true. Now, recently she changed her tune, but she changed her tune after massive, 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 massive blowback on that issue. So it's not a question. Bernie has always been correct about healthcare. Elizabeth Warren has waffled and just recently started to say the right things about healthcare, but I don't know if she'll fight for it the way Bernie will fight for it. Now, in foreign policy, never a question. Bernie Sanders was always to the left of Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, you know, literally has served defense contractors in her home state, because there are a bunch of them in her home state. Not even close, dude. Not even close. So that's not a question, but they make it a question because they want to push that idea. They want to, what they're doing is gatekeeping. Hey, here's as far left as you can go, bro. Fine, you want to go Elizabeth Warren? Okay, I mean, we don't really like her, but she's somewhat acceptable because at least on some issues she's kind of corporate. So fine, that's as far left as you can go as Elizabeth Warren. That's what they're doing there. Then he says, and this is a hilarious criticism, Twitter lit up over this and ripping Markos a new asshole. Oh, his problem is that he has the same message as 4 years ago. Hey, Markos, the issues didn't change from 4 years ago. We still have, you know, 30 to 40 million Americans that don't have health insurance. We still have 30 to 45,000 Americans who die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. We still have low wages, stagnant wages in this country. We're still waging endless war. Wall Street is still ripping everybody off. His message is the same because the solutions are the same. And that's a hell of a criticism, isn't it? Bernie Sanders, here he is being all consistent and stuff. That's not a criticism. If anything, you're complimenting him and you don't even realize that you're complimenting him. How sad are you, man? Because listen, he's working backwards from his conclusion, and his conclusion is, I don't like Bernie. I don't like him. I don't agree with him. So I'm going to work backwards from that, and I'll attack him for whatever reason, good reason, bad reason, no reason, doesn't matter. And he ends up attacking him for being too consistent. What the fuck? Then he says, the accusation is other Democrats are stealing his message, like Bernie invented liberalism. Marco, see, on this point, I think he's playing dumb on purpose. I don't think it's just like, oh, he's wrong about something. No. He's playing dumb on purpose. Bernie Sanders is an FDR-style New Deal Democrat, also known as a social democrat. He calls himself a democratic socialist. If you actually go by the definitions, he's not a democratic socialist because he's not fully post-capitalist, but he's a deep reformer, and he believes in social democracy. He believes in taking certain things out of the marketplace because they don't belong there, like healthcare, like college, for example, okay? That's what he is. Almost all of the other candidates on stage are not social democrats. They're centrist neoliberals. They still wholeheartedly believe in keeping these giant swaths of the economy in the private sector. So, no, he's making the social democratic message the main message, when for decades in the Democratic Party, it was the neoliberal message that was the main message. Even Obama. People accused him of being far left. Oh, please, don't make me laugh. He's always been a center leftist. A neoliberal. By the way, I'm not trying to use that word as a pejorative. I'm just using that word as a descriptive explanation of their position. They're tweakers of the marketplace. That's it. Bernie is in favor of fundamental reform to take certain aspects of the economy out of the marketplace and to make it government. So that's not the same. It's not even close to the same thing. And yes, for all the candidates to now chase Bernie to social democracy, that means that at least in their rhetoric, they have to move left. So of course that's Bernie changing the party. Again, I think he's being dense on purpose. This isn't like just a mistake. It's him like obfuscating on purpose. And then finally, this is just not true when he says, oh, Bernie's done nothing to build his own base of support since the last election. Bernie Sanders has been doing rallies all over this country. He's been talking to leaders in the black community in the South, getting their support, working with them, doing everything he can to do better in communities that he didn't do as well in last time. So in the last election, yes, he admits it. Everybody knows it. It was the black vote in the South. It did hurt Bernie. He did really well in other areas. He struggled in California, he struggled in New York, and he struggled with the black vote in the South. Bernie's doing everything that he can in order to change that and in order to let communities know, hey, listen, I care. I'm here to work on your concerns. Here are my policy ideas. Here's what I'm fighting for. I'm going to do everything I can to change this system fundamentally. So he's working his ass off, man. In fact, I would argue nobody's worked harder. But still, somehow, Marcos goes out there and says he's done nothing to build his own base. That's fundamentally not true. So it's a shame that, he says such ridiculous things. I met him at Politicon. I was on a panel with him. He's a nice guy in person. He's a nice dude. So it brings me no pleasure to do this segment to be like, hey, dude, come on, what are you doing here? But I have to do it because this is wild. A lot of the criticisms are just beyond silly.